This is HBR News number 365. Scrabble bans 400 words. Ohio bill allows pregnant people to sue men. Where we reflect on the stories of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello everyone and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are enjoying your July heat. I know that I'm not, but with that out of the way, I just want to welcome you guys to the show. And I am Brian, and I'm joined by, as always, Mike. Mike is here, but Randomer Cam Mike is here, not Mike J. But he'll probably be along shortly, and Hannah. And we're going to be talking about various.
And
news
I am
stories.
not shortly either.
Yeah, she's actually not shortly at all. She's pretty tall. So we have a great show lined up for you guys today, so please be sure to continue the conversations both in the chat and as well as the comment section. On this week's HBR News Show, we're going to be talking about recent comments. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's not correct. I'm looking at last week's. This week we're going to be talking about Popeye the Sailor, who is now gender fluid. Scrabble has banned 400 words, I assume from their professional championship Scrabble tournaments, as per rules. The New York City self-defense stabbing that destroyed the lives of 2 men, the Ohio bill that allows pregnant people to sue men who accidentally impregnate them, intentional or not, and more. So stick around, it's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show, which this is a blast from the past. This is from a website called The Gamer, and it's entitled, "Gamers Are Terrible People, and We Should Stop Being Okay With It." This, and I swear to God, this is from July of this year. This is not something I found from the archive, like, crypt of 2015. This is current stuff. So
time is cyclical. Empires fall and then rise.
Yep.
Yes. So we're going to look into why gamers are terrible people and why we should stop being okay with it. But I can tell you right off the bat that it's probably got something to do with men, masculinity, and toxicness. So join us on the Patreon show if you're curious to know whether or not I am dead on correct, because I will be most likely. And if you don't want to, miss out on this additional content, then you should consider going to our website and supporting us so that you can get access to the additional content yourself. So you can be a part of the action by going to feedthebadger.com and signing up. It'll get $5 a month. Will get you a membership into the Discord. You'll be able to watch a lot of additional content, including the patron-only shows. But there's lots of other things going on too. There are game nights, there are movie nights, etc. I think tonight people usually play what's that game with the cards? Cards Against Humanity. But there could be other stuff. So, come hang out with us. Be a part of a community that doesn't blame men or hate men and throw them under the bus, and actually supports them. So that's feedthebadger.com. And if you want to make sure you don't miss out on any of the content that we have made previously, and YouTube has already, in the event that they inevitably yeet us from the internet, go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com so that you can see where all of our content is archived. So feedthebadger.com to support, honeybadgerradio.com, and badgerfeed.com to find our content online, away from the watchful eye of Sauron that is the YouTube algorithm. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get into the stories. I got a super chat from Richard Bier for $1.99, and he says, Berlin College fighting Gibson Bakery still. Oh, you mean Oberlin, unless you're making a joke. But yes, we know. That's college. That's college in the current year. That's what it is. So let's go ahead and get into today's stories. We're going to start with Popeye the Sailor. So let me get my notes out. I think we all grew up with Popeye. I don't know if you guys did.
My granddad grew up with Popeye.
Yeah, it's old. It's very old. So been around since, I believe, the 30s. So as the prolific High Eisman retires from the world of comics at age 95, he lets go of the reins of the Popeye Sunday morning cartoon strip as well. Eisman both wrote and drew the Popeye comic strip for nearly 30 years, from 1994 to 2022. He's also responsible for adding Bluto to the comic as the twin brother of Brutus in 2008.
I'm pretty sure that's the wrong way around.
Yeah, I think Brutus is the original, right?
No, but I'm pretty sure Pluto's been in it since 80 years before that. I think.
Yeah,
I may be wrong, but I think Brutus is the new entity.
I think that might be right, but this is how they're claiming it. But and let me finish. So taking over for Eisman, is comic artist R.K. Milholland, who has some interesting ideas as to where the strip should be headed. In an interview, Milholland stated, quote, "I want to bring in more characters who aren't heterosexual. I don't live in that purely straight white world, and I don't think a lot of other people do either," end quote. Milholland twists older adventures of Popeye to fit his current year narrative by saying, quote, and I think you guys know where this is going because they do this with all of these old cartoons. So Popeye dresses up as a woman and says, "I'm your mom now," to an orphan. And that's not a joke. It's Popeye being the kind of character he originally was. Someone
character, not the kind.
Oh, the kind character. I'm sorry.
Kind character.
Yeah, the kind character.
That's what women and non-binaries are like. They're kind, unlike men.
Yeah, of course. Someone who do whatever he could for someone down on their luck, like an orphan. If you go by today's definition, Popeye was gender fluid, end quote. With such bold moves planned for the strip, one shudders to think of what Mulholland may have planned next for the eponymous Sailor Man's comic.
Well, where do we start? How do you know any of these characters are heterosexual? They never had a discussion about it, to my knowledge. You don't know what Popeye and Bluto got up to behind the scenes, perhaps after a particularly sweaty session at the gym. You don't know what anyone was into. Are you telling me Wimpy wasn't a little bit skewed in a rather fruity direction? I don't know how well my gaydar's working, but he seemed a little bit ooh-woo. Probably at least tried it up the arse a couple of times. There was nothing that dude wouldn't do for a hamburger come Tuesday. Make Wimpy gay. Go on. Retcon Wimpy into having always been gay. That's way more believable than Popeye being gender fluid. Or Popeye being a kind character. Popeye was never particularly kind. He was incredibly violent. Which is fair enough, since his girlfriend is constantly getting sexually assaulted by a giant man who, for some reason, never gets arrested for it. I guess she dropped the charges every time. Almost as though she enjoyed the whole fiasco. That show was always a barely veiled female power fantasy, by the way. These two buff guys constantly fighting over the same plain, rather undesirable woman. Yeah.
Where was the veil in that? That was pretty overt. That was pretty open there.
Yeah, the damsel in distress is the female power fantasy. So it was already more than woke enough in more ways than one. I mean, he's already vegan. Surely only a vegan would enjoy spinach that much or be quite so sure of the gains that it gives you. And they already had everything they could have asked for in a sort of gender-bending character, namely Alice the Goon. You tell us anything you like about Alice the Goon and we'll believe you. That was actually a female character. It wasn't a stage name like Alice Cooper. Like, she had superhuman strength and she was indestructible and she was the size of a sofa, but she was always supposed to be female. Either she was straight out of a transgender weightlifting team or she was from a non-human species. I don't recall ever being filled in on exactly what a goon is supposed to be, but either way, she was very much the inspiration you're looking for in that area. So your options were already wide open. Surely the last character in the world you would turn gender fluid would be Popeye. I know he's a sailor, and sailors notoriously get up to some quite debaucherous things, but do remember, he is Popeye the Sailor Man.
Yeah.
The jingle is Popeye the Sailor Man. Are you gonna have to change the title to Popeye the Sailor, sometimes man, sometimes woman, sometimes other, depending on whether he's saving an orphan or beating a man to a bloody pulp with his bare hands? I admit that might be interesting. Way more interesting than Popeye and Son, if anyone remembers that.
Oh god.
So I'm waiting for the
Discuss.
episode where Popeye goes into a game store with 5 o'clock shadow and a dress and goes off on the clerk and says, "It's Popeye the Sailor, ma'am, ma'am." Seriously, nobody believes this. This is bullshit. It is overt bullshit, and we've gotten to the point now where the woke think that they're consistent hammering, bludgeoning attacks on objective reality and our cultural history, our shared cultural history as a nation and as Western civilization, have eliminated our ability to remember things and to identify things, to observe things and recognize them and things like that. And it's just bullshit. They haven't eliminated that. And no one should tolerate their efforts at forcing you to pretend that they have eliminated that.
Yeah.
They don't have that right. They're not owed that. And you don't owe anybody that.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about what I think is going on. I think that this comes back to the cultural hostility towards masculinity. So Popeye has been through a lot of changes because, you know, there are the people who are making the cartoons or the comics, they were trying to like remain relevant, and I think that that's fine. You know, it might even be admirable depending on what ways they were doing it. But when you look back at Popeye in the early years, there's some things that I don't know that a lot of people might be aware of. Number one, he was considered patriotic. So he was a patriotic figure of masculinity. And the spinach thing, I believe that he didn't even start off doing that. That, you know, originally Popeye wasn't like associated with spinach. He wasn't even the main character in the comic strip he appeared in. He was a side character. It was actually, I forget the name of the comic, but it was like, it featured these guys in a diner, and you would occasionally see them in the cartoons too. And then Popeye might show up and he'd tell a story of his like adventures, you know, on the sea. And that's why he became really popular. But he was basically a military figure. He's a Navy guy in the comics. He was a masculine figure. He was basically what boys really liked about this character. And the spinach thing was, I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe it had something to do with like how people were canning a lot of food, you know, after the Depression, and he was basically being used to market spinach to kids and make it seem appealing. So that was and I think it had a lot to do with, you know, food shortages and things like this, right? But when World War II was going on, Popeye was one of the prominent figures, you know, punching out Germans and, you know, and things like that. And they made a lot of cartoons about it. And yes, the olive oil thing was all about the female power fantasy of, you know, being rescued by a strong man or even being fought over by a couple of strong men. And, you know, we can have our thoughts on that and criticism on that, and that's all fine. But I'm thinking about what's really under attack here isn't that, because with olive oil, for example, they later made cartoons about her, you know, being empowered and wanting to run for president and things like this. And it was all about women's lib. You know, do you guys remember the olive oil song, If I Was President? Okay. And all of the amazing things she would do. So, you know, they were already sort of shifting that. But Popeye still remained, for the most part, a positive masculine figure, you know, and I think that what they're doing is they're just going after him because of that. They're just coming after all positive masculine figures, even if they're kind of silly and cartoony, or even like not necessarily masculine, but something that can be twisted. Like they've already made the claim that because Bugs Bunny occasionally dresses up like a girl, it means that he's trans. I mean, like this is for no reason other than they get a extreme rush of like narcissistic power over making these claims, over using language to control things, and then making like saying, yeah, that whole bit with Bugs Bunny turning into a woman, that's not simply a gag. Because if it's a gag,
dressing up as a woman. But we're now at the point where dressing up as a woman makes you a woman. You never say this about Monty Python. Every Python used to do a bit where they would dress up in a woman and go, "Ooh, hark at him!" But they don't.
Yeah,
they don't claim that everyone in Monty Python was an icon of transgenderism. Probably because of that one scene in Life of Brian that they'll never be forgiven for. You know the one I mean.
Yeah, for sure. And so, but at the end of the day, this isn't about whether or not it's a funny gag, because I think that the thing is with Bugs Bunny, for example, they either have to accept that it's a joke, which means it seems to make fun of cross-dressing, which is what it's doing, because they know it's ridiculous. That's why people find it funny. Or they have to twist reality and say, no, Bugs Bunny is trans. And that's what they're trying to do with Popeye. And any cartoon, like from the old days when we would consider cross-dressing to be so absurd as to be hilarious, hence we would make that a gag for the cartoon. Now they get to go and retroactively say, oh no, they're all gender fluid, or they're all this or that. But honestly, putting all that aside, I think that this is just an attack on Popeye because he's a man. And that's it. Like, he's got the most prominent Adam's apple of any cartoon character as a man. Like, you know, and he was based on a real person. Did you guys know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, he was based on a real person. There are some photos circulating that claim that the person he's based on, it's not this man. There was this guy, and he had like the pipe in the chin, but he was like a British naval officer. It's not him, but it's another guy. I think his name was Rocky something or other. And he was, I believe he lived in Illinois. And that's where that's the inspiration for Popeye. So it's not even just like a fictional thing either. We're talking about a real man who really lived. And this was the basis or the inspiration for the cartoonist that created Popeye. And I think that and the fact that a lot of people don't know that, it does kind of again, do further harm to the legacy, to the cultural legacy of this character. So, and of course, these people want to completely repurpose it. They just want to make this about something else. And did you notice that the cartoonist that took over said that, he said that, let me go back here. He says, I want to bring in more characters who aren't heterosexual. I don't live in that purely straight white world. And I don't think a lot of other people do either. What does whiteness have to do with heterosexuality? Like, why are we relating those things? Why is he doing that? I mean, I don't know. It's just, it's kind of obvious and pathetic, and I hope that no one falls for it. So
I've made this point before, but it's mostly white people that live in a gay world.
Yeah. I know that. Well, at least openly, you know, I think there's a lot of black guys on the down low is what I'm saying. So,
with this kind of statement that he made, though, it's about naming as many things as you can that attune you to the correctness of how you view the progressive stack, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you don't want to be attuned to the wrongness of how other people view the progressive stack and not think of people based on how they fit into it and stuff. So that's why he's doing that. It has absolutely nothing to do with any of the groups in the stack being related to each other in any way. It's just, I have to make this list. I have to rattle off this list, or I'm not doing it right. I'm not being obedient to the woke ideology, so I might get canceled. And that's all it is. And once you sort of realize it, it's a lot like Red Light, Green Light, or Simon Says, or any of those other games we used to play as kids, where you had a set of rules, and as long as everybody followed those rules, the game went smoothly, right? These people are trying to create house rules for culture, for Western culture, that will exclude anybody who went by the previous rules of Western culture, which were much more lax. There weren't so many. And they want to erase the old rules and come up with ways in which they can elevate themselves without actually doing anything of merit. And that's it. That's this. You don't have to accept the new rules. You don't have to accept, any of this bullshit. You don't have to accept the progressive, woke belief system, and you don't have to play by it. Mm-hmm. You simply tell them, I'm not involved in your obsessive compulsive listing off of people's demographic characteristics. I'm just living my life. And if you guys want to make me live your crazy ass obsessive over complication of social interactions, well, you can fuck off, because I'm not going to do it. And that's it. That's all if everybody just did that didn't want to be involved, and rejected all of this out of hand, and stopped trying to apologize and kowtow to these people for them getting mad because you're not playing by their rules, then it would just disappear. They would fail at it, and it would go away. That happened during the 90s. We made fun of them during the 90s for this, and it vanished for about 15 years.
Yep. I mean, I don't think this is going to go over very well anyway. I think it's just like a lame attempt at a virtue signal by this cartoonist. I think that he's just trying to draw attention to his thing. And fact is that, like, I didn't even know that Popeye was even still around. I mean, I would like that to be the case because I really enjoyed it as a kid. And I think that, a lot of other kids could enjoy it if it's treated in the same way with the same respect as it was back in the day. I don't know. I always thought Popeye was really great. I even liked the movie with Robin Williams. So.
Oh yeah, that was funny.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I remember the time he leveled a forest with his fists so that he could build a cabin, and that is the most Popeye thing ever. So I think it would really upset people.
Does anyone else remember Popeye and Son, or was that just me?
No, I remember that. It was awful. Like, that should not have happened.
It was. Yeah. That was the 90s version of ruining a series. They just set it on a beach in Malibu or some shit. And he had a son, and Bluto had a son. But that was far better than turning him fucking gender fluid.
Yeah, exactly. I think that because the later cartoons, I just gotta get this out. The later cartoons made this mistake that the original cartoons did a lot better, and it was in the ad-libbing of the dialogue. So if you watch the old Popeye cartoons, the black and white ones, like, you will notice that Popeye, all the characters, they would have lines that they had to say, but there was a lot of space for, like, mumbling and other little commentary that they would give, especially Popeye. So, and it was always really fucking funny. Like, as a kid, you might not notice it because you just want to see the spectacle of, like, the action. But as you get older and you're listening, you can hear, like, him making these little side comments, and sometimes Bluto will do it and Olive Oil will do it, and it's really funny. Like, it's funny because that the voice actors are just, like, having a good time, and they're just making these little jokes, and they're staying in character, and that was, like, I think that's the thing that makes it stand out, to be honest. That and how Popeye uses, like, his fist to essentially solve all of his problems, like, all of them. And I think that's funny too, because it is a little absurd. And so, but these people,
he only ever had one problem, and it was Bluto raping his missus.
Yeah, there was that. But sometimes he would need to build a shelter, or I remember, I think there was this one cartoon, and I always thought it was really funny. He was, like, in Mexico, I think, and he's, like, entering this Mexican village, and I think he's with Olive Oil, and there's this guy, this Mexican guy, he's, like, standing outside the entrance, and he's just got this, like, creepy smile on his face. And he's just looking at Popeye and Olive with this creepy grin. And Popeye just decides he doesn't like that, and he uppercuts the guy. Like, and I think he turns into a taco stand. It's like kind of I thought it was hilarious though. Like I didn't really find any of that offensive. I thought it was really funny, but I kind of remember that. Those are the really old cartoons. But anyway, I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on that. Did you grow up watching Popeye the Sailor? If it wasn't like the lame shit from like the 80s and 90s, because that shit wasn't cool. I'm talking about the older ones. Yeah, let us know in the comments if you have a favorite moment or if you watched it. But also, what do you think about this story? Do you think that they're actually going to try and push this into the actual writing? Or do you think this guy's just making like this empty claim, and perhaps the people who own this character, probably won't let it happen? Also, is Popeye ever going to go into the public domain? Because maybe that would be the best thing that ever happened to him. I don't know.
How long does it take? It's been
like 70 or 80 years.
Almost 100 years.
Yeah.
89, I think he came about.
The problem with the intellectual property laws is it's not just about copyright with something like Popeye or Mickey Mouse and stuff like that. There's copyright and trademark to deal with. And I don't know as well the laws on trademark as I do the laws on copyright.
Yeah.
So I know that, for instance, the very old comic strips that were from way back, and those are probably not copyrighted anymore, right? And maybe the old original artwork from the cartoons, if it's old enough, if it's more than 70 years old or whatever, it's probably not copyrighted anymore. And there's probably episodes that aren't copyrighted because their copyright wasn't renewed after Disney got copyright lengthened the first time anyway. And so that may be one thing, but the Popeye franchise or character or artwork or name or whatever, that might be trademarked. It probably is trademarked. I can't imagine that it's not, right? And that might be a totally different area of law that you might be able to use. Like, you can use the Merry Melodies, the old Looney Tunes and stuff like that are not copyrighted. Like the one where they introduced the two cats that were caricatures of Abbott and Costello, in which they also introduced Tweety Bird. That one's not copyrighted. I use stuff out of that all the time.
I should hope so. My outro has been a Looney Tunes thing for the last 8 years.
Well, and actually that song was older than Merry Melodies. That was from vaudeville, and it's not something that's copyrighted either. The Jell-O jingle used to be the old Kresge's department store jingle. Nobody our age and younger knows what I'm talking about. Kresge's is Kmart. So, and it was not copyrighted. That was like I want to say that was a vaudeville thing too, and there were lyrics to it, and that's what the outro for Merry Melodies is. It's the same tune, and it's not a copyrighted tune, so it's not something that somebody can. Well, you can't use that. Yes, you can, and you just can't if you take the whole cartoon or you take a big portion of that cartoon, and they can say, well, you took that from that cartoon, and that cartoon that was is still copyrighted, like that episode is still copyrighted, then you can get into trouble for that. Sure. But like, yeah, it's very possible that you could find at least episodes of Popeye that not only are not copyrighted, but might even be pretty well forgotten, unless somebody were to resurrect them and put them in their stuff.
You can watch old episodes on YouTube. I don't know if like those people are demonetized or whatever, but you can find them. So okay, but anyway, we got to move on because we got a number of stories to get through. So let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. Let me read your super chat because we did get one from Rumble from Meredith G, and Meredith G gives us $5 and says, given the demographics for the Popeye comics, making him gender fluid is going to go over like a lead balloon. No new fans and pissing off the existing fans. Yeah, and it's not like Popeye's not exactly a rising star, so it's not gonna do them a lot of favors. When I think the character can be reinvigorated if they like have the right talent and they go back to the way that they used to be, I think that could work. But yeah, I don't think these people care about that. But thank you, Meredith, for the Rumble rant. And now we're going to move on to the next story. And after this, we're going to go over to Rumble. So first, we're going to go ahead and do this one. So you guys on YouTube, you get 2 stories this time. They're just going to be short-ish. All right. So Scrabble. Do you guys remember Scrabble? Whoever, I used to play it. I also did Words with Friends for a while. Scrabble's fun. You know, I never had a...
You'd think I'd be good at Scrabble, but I'm terrible at
it. Yeah. I get it. So the Scrabble community, yes, there is a community of people who play Scrabble, is pissed after more than 400 terms were removed from the game's official online words list. According to Scrabble playing Spectator columnist Jonathan Maitland, many people are quitting the board game because of the changes. Can you guys guess why 400 words were removed from the game's official list? Can you guess?
I'll start with the letter N. Would anyone like to carry on?
Yeah, help me fill this out.
We only need the letter P. Politically correct.
From the Spectator article, author Daryl Francis is quitting the World English Language Scrabble Players Association in protest, saying, quote, words in dictionaries and Scrabble lists are not slurs. They only become slurs if used with a derogatory purpose or intent or used with a particular tone and context. Words in our Scrabble lists should not be removed for PR purposes disguised as promoting some kind of social betterment, end quote. Maitland acknowledges that some of the words banned may be vile racial slurs, and isn't that the goal of Scrabble? Like, I feel like if I'm playing Scrabble, my goal is to put in a word that's going to make people laugh, because it's either really edgy or you know, it's funny. But anyway, these people are anti-fun, so some of the words banned may be vile racial slurs, but that ultimately words can't be uninvented. They are part of our sometimes shameful history. He cites Craig Beavers, spelled with 2 E's, the 2014 World Scrabble Champion, I'm sure that's hanging over his fireplace, who says, quote, the woke brigade are running our game. Saying Beavers believes the ban will be, quote, the final nail in the coffin for a lot of competitive players.
Yeah, competitive. Yeah, I was going to say, I presume it's only people who play competitively who are pissed off. Yes, some people, believe it or not, do. There's such a thing as the London Scrabble League, as outlined in this Spectator article that we've got linked. And there are people who play it online, wherein obviously the rules are fixed. I'm not sure how they're supposed to prevent anyone from cheating when everyone has multiple online anagram scramblers at their fingertips. So I fail to see how competitive play is even possible in that context. But for the people playing it at home on a physical board, this means nothing. It changes nothing. It's still up to you what dictionary you use, as long as you're all using the same one. You could even play the variation, as Brian said, where only rude words are allowed, or some, dirty Scrabble, or whatever you're calling it. Personally, I've never figured out how that works in practice, because it's extremely handicapping. There's like 500,000 words in the English language, and very few of them are in any way rude. So I guess you just have to use your imagination when defining what is and isn't rude. Which brings me on to 419 words. They found 419 words that were deemed too offensive to use in Scrabble. I couldn't think of 419 offensive words if my life depended on it. That's so impressive. It's inspiring. I want to see this list. I want to see it right meow.
I do too.
I want to shake the hands of whoever came up with it. They must be geniuses in the field of insulting people. It's like that famous story of when Samuel Johnson wrote the first official English dictionary. He was visited, among others, by a delegation of the respectable ladies of London, who told him, "We are delighted, Dr. Johnson, to find that you have not included any indecent or obscene words in your dictionary." And he responded, "Ladies, I congratulate you on being able to look them up. That story is so short, but it tells us so much about the nature of censorious moral busybodies. All they do is take the darkness in their own vocabulary and try to exorcise it from everyone else's vocabulary. You're acting like you're fixing a problem, but clearly you are the problem you're talking about. Not to me, though. Like I said, I'm in awe that you can think of that many obscene words. You're like a walking thesaurus of zingers, and I want to meet you, whoever you are. You should write comedy roasts, and rap battles. You would be exceptional at the craft. Just put all 419 of those words in alphabetical order and read them out to a blast beat or whatever. You will have an absolute banger on your hands. Seriously, call me. We can light up the night, you and I.
Wonder how many synonyms for man and woman are on that list.
I wonder.
That would explain it. Okay.
Yeah, I have my suspicions that is part of the problem. I think this is. I played Scrabble all the time when I was a kid, mostly with adults because other kids wouldn't play with me. Not that game anyway. I was one of those kids that every time I would lay out a word, the other kids would be like, "That's not a word," and then we'd have to go get the dictionary. And yes, it was. It just was not in the normal vocabulary of a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old or whatever. And I was an asshole about it. Like I was a really, really big asshole about it. I will not even sugarcoat that. And part of it was, I didn't really never have had the social skills to not be an asshole about that. So, but in any case, like this is just silly. Even my very prim and proper grandmother, if it would score her points, would put the word fart on that board. And I remember one time her winning the game because fart happened to cross something like a 3 times, score and something else. It just basically put her over the edge on the score. And from there on, she was ahead in the rest of the game just because we were all like, Grandma put fart on the Scrabble board. And that was it. That was the end of it. So like this really is a destruction of it's language. A destruction of communication. You can't communicate in terms of anything that people are familiar with if you take away the familiar words. And as far as offensive language and stuff like that, I've got a story that so the time my brother and I almost killed our parents with laughter over ignorance. My mom always insisted on us being very devoid of any rude words. So we didn't fart in our house. We passed gas, right? We didn't know the word fart when I was a little kid, like 5 or 6 or 7 years old, maybe. And it was about that age when we also realized that our parents could come into our rooms at any time. No warning, no nothing, because they were our parents and that's what they did. But we were not allowed to go into their room without asking. Well, to be fair, there was a gun in their room, so we weren't allowed to go in their room without asking, right? We also knew we weren't allowed to touch the gun or even walk within 3 feet of it and that kind of thing. And we managed to not shoot each other. Miracle, right? But in any case, we went stomping out into the living room and demanded to know of our parents why this inequality of treatment. They had their privacy, we couldn't have ours, And we're talking like a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. So they thought this was funny. And then my dad leans forward in his chair and he goes, "There's a fart in the bedroom. You want to go smell it?" And I was like, I looked at my brother and he looked at me and we just kind of walked away, and my mom says his name, like, "Burton," and so then we go back to their room. We didn't know what a fart was, so we went looking for it. We searched the entire room. We found everything that we probably weren't supposed to see in their room, like all their, different like books and all of the little boxes that probably had Christmas presents and stuff that were taped shut and we didn't open because they had tape on them. But, and things like that. We didn't find anything that remotely was unfamiliar. So we went back out and we told them, and we looked all over the place, and we just couldn't find the fart. And that was when we thought we'd killed them. Like, they literally laughed so hard I thought they were going to die. And that was also when my dad turns to my mom and kind of says, we need to quit with the language issue. We're both English teachers. The kids need to learn the whole language. And that was my philosophy with language when my kids were growing up. Like, my kids knew all the foul language because I used it. They knew when it was appropriate to use it. They knew when not to use it. And they knew the correct definitions of the terms so that they didn't sound stupid when they used it. And they use it sparingly, believe it or not. And that's the story of the fart in the bedroom. And I think maybe the Scrabble people need an experience like the fart in the bedroom, where their kids go spend half an hour looking for something that they don't know what it is because there's not a word for it. The attack on objective reality might be funny in my parents' household when I was a little kid, but when you do it in real life outside of the home, like when you do that to the entire public, when you do that to an entire social group, it stops being funny. And it starts to become very nefarious, very dangerous, malicious, and definitely something that should not be tolerated. So
Yeah.
I stand with the fans of the game that are very angry about this. Like, I'm sorry, but the fact that a word is offensive doesn't change the fact that it's a word. Right? And it is part of the language. And if this is a game of vocabulary, it's the antithesis of this game, right? It is a violation of the spirit of the game to remove part of the vocabulary that you can use to play it, to ban words. It's like banning patterns of step from football or soccer or cross-country running or hurdles or anything else like that. It's like banning patterns of step from dance. It's stupid. And frankly, fuck them for doing it.
Well, it's all about control. By the way, I found the list of the words, Mike. If it's right there in the live show chat.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Words.
And it's a lot of gamer words, but it's also, like, well, you just have to look at it. But the fact is, it's just like, this isn't a
fuck.
Yeah, this is just an attack on language itself. And maybe, like, the professional tournament level Scrabble people, I guess they can do whatever they want, but this doesn't, like, I literally believe that one of the reasons why people have fun playing Scrabble is because of some of the funny words they might try to make or get away with, or even turn out to be real. And this is just an attack on language. They're essentially trying to erase this from reality. And the fact is that, these words exist. So what? We should, like, live with it. So, yeah.
Okay, so I have a question. Am I supposed to be offended when someone calls me Goyim or Gringo?
I don't know. Or, yeah, I know that's like some of the stuff on the list. And there's like hair-lipped or hair lips. Who does that offend? It's just lesbo. Is that really bad? Lesbo?
I don't know.
I thought that was just short for lesbian.
I don't know. Like, I know that hair lip refers to a condition.
Yeah, but
there's other names for that condition, but okay, so they've mixed something up there. They've mixed up some other things too, like Mongolian versus Mongoloid.
Yeah. No, I know.
Those are not the same thing. And like, yes, one of them is offensive, but the other one has a historic meaning and doesn't have. And actually, that's for Pete's sake.
Well, these people don't like. They think the word Mongol or Mongolian is essentially, it supposedly means that someone is affected by Down syndrome. So they equate it to Mongoloid, but Mongoloid doesn't even define that. It's literally like there are 3 primary phenotypes of humanity, right? There are Negroids, Caucasoids, and Mongoloids. None of those words are offensive. They simply describe reality. But again, these people don't care about that. Like, they care about the
Siamese. Siamese isn't offensive unless you're using it in a certain context, because it was used in a certain context because a certain case of the first Siamese twins were happened to be Siamese. That doesn't make the word Siamese offensive,
right? Just like, well, I mean, if you're from Siam, you're Siamese. If you are from Mongolia, which is a country in East Asia, you're Mongolian.
Yeah.
So but it's not the same thing as referring to someone with Down syndrome as Mongoloid, which I think started because of a resemblance to people from Mongolia in the facial features, which may be or may not be. But the term isn't used to describe people with Down syndrome because it has been used as a slur, which I don't know why anybody would want to use a slur against people with Down syndrome, because if you meet them, there's a genetic predisposition in Down syndrome to be very nice people. Like, that's literally a real thing. And so it's like kicking, like, I don't know, your favorite kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
But I guess there are people that do shit like that.
Well, I'm sure there are, but like
it's still a real word. I would still expect it to be usable in Scrabble. It's just I wouldn't go up to somebody and call them that.
Yeah. But like this is why I know that this is a ridiculous list. Like, literally the word Jew is on the list. So you can't even the word Jew is offensive. They literally define it as They literally define it as to barter successfully, and I thought we were just describing
for fuck's sake.
Yeah, but it's like, this is a word that describes a people. Like that's it's all it is, right? So
this list was written by somebody who is prejudiced. If that's the only meaning they know for that word, then yeah.
I mean, not that Jew is worth a lot of points. It's just 3 letters, but still, like, and not just that, but like pikey, which is they're like gypsies in Ireland or something, right? I think.
I agree.
They live in caravans, right? That's just the way that they were described, but you can't, like, that's on the list too. So look, it's obviously just an attack on language itself. They want to make words less relevant. Scrabble's just a means to do it in this particular context. But I mean, you guys I'll put a link to the list in the description so you guys can see it yourself. But we really got to move on. So I'm going to leave it there. I was about to ask
if anyone could give me a beat so I can actually run through this alphabet, but you can't do it in a stream because of the lag.
Yeah.
I'll do it myself.
Is on there.
Do it yourself. The
Whitey is actually on there. I was about to say it's like the Louis C.K. routine where the difference between Jew and Jew is it becomes a slur when you say it in a particular way. Jew. Yeah. And I was looking down to see if white is on there, but at least Whitey is on there. That doesn't make it okay. Like, none of this makes it okay.
I mean, like, wigger is on there. That's like one of my favorite words. Like, that's just so sad. All right, but anyway, look, we're going to go on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. What are your thoughts on this whole Scrabble censorship thing? I don't know what else to call it. Do you think that this makes the game better? Let us know in the comments. And now we're going to move on over to Rumble. So those of you guys who are watching us on YouTube, you might want to go to Rumble to see the rest of the show, because now we're going to get into the meatier stories. So yeah, go to rumble.com and search up HB Radio. That's HB Radio on Rumble. Or you can go to Twitch, Honey Badger, I think it's just Honey Badger Radio on Twitch. We're on Facebook. We're on D Live. So, go check us out there. For now, I look forward to seeing your comments, and I hope to see you over on Rumble. Thank you guys, and we will talk to you in a little bit.
Redneck is on there.